I closed the bedroom door, put my phone on airplane mode, left a letter on the dresser. Nothing poetic, just an apology to my mom. I took the pills one by one, tasting the bitterness of the only decision that, at that moment, seemed to make sense, to end it all. But when I woke up still there, surrounded by machines, voices and shame, I realized the part no one ever told me. The pain doesn't end with death. It just changes form, and sometimes becomes much worse. My name is Zayn Malik. I'm 27 years old, and I was born in the UK, in a small town north of London. I grew up surrounded by noise, technology, and opportunities. But inside, there was only silence. A heavy silence, as if life had forgotten to give me a purpose. Before I go on with this testimony, leave a comment telling me where you're watching this video from. I want to know how far this message is reaching, because if it found its way to you, maybe it's not by chance. The worst pain doesn't scream. It whispers. It settles in slowly like a shadow, filling the corners of your mind, until you can't tell where thought ends and torment begins. It started with insomnia. Then came forgetfulness. Anxiety attacks in the bathroom, at work, on the subway. The constant feeling that something terrible was about to happen, even when everything around me was calm. I smiled with friends, but my soul no longer lived in me. It was somewhere dark, begging to be let out. And the most desperate part was that no one noticed. People thought I was just introverted, reserved. They said, "He's quiet." But inside, I was a battlefield. Thoughts like bullets, memories like bombs, guilt like shrapnel. It wasn't sadness, it was war. I looked at myself and thought, how did I get here? I had a home, food on the table, people who loved me, but nothing made sense. What once brought me joy, movies, music, even food, became chores. Sleeping became a challenge. Waking up, even worse. And then comes that thought you never imagined you'd have. What if ending it all is better than living like this? I tried to distract myself. Videos, games, work, social media. But all of that is like a glass of water trying to put out a fire. The pain didn't go away. It just disguised itself for a few minutes and came back even stronger. The worst part is that you feel alone, even surrounded by people. You smile at family lunches, crack jokes in group chats. But when you lock your bedroom door, it's just you and the chaos. And it's in that place, between appearance and collapse, that suicide starts to look like a silent option. Not because you want to die, but because you don't want to feel anymore. I didn't want attention. I didn't want pity. I just wanted peace. And when your mind becomes a battlefield, you start to think, maybe the only way to stop this noise is to turn everything off. But what I didn't know is that turning off the body doesn't silence the soul. That morning, I didn't cry. There was no drama, no long letter, no elaborate goodbye. There was just a deep silence, as if I had been dead inside for a long time already. I took the pills one by one, not with fear, but with a strange kind of calm. A calm that only comes when pain has drained you so much. You no longer have the strength to feel. I laid on the bed like someone surrendering, not to death, but to the end of the fight. I closed my eyes, waited for everything to fade, but it didn't. I woke up to bright lights in my eyes, the smell of a hospital, machines beeping, and a weight in my stomach, not just from the pills, but from the fact that I was still alive. I wanted to die, but God let me wake up. In the days that followed, the shame was worse than the pain. Everyone said I had gotten lucky, but I didn't feel lucky. I felt exposed, broken, a failure even at dying. That's when something started to shift. A nurse, who knew nothing about me, said something that still echoes in my mind. You didn't die because there's still something left for you to live. Don't take this as punishment. Take it as a second chance. In that moment, something inside me trembled. What if it wasn't a mistake? What if what I called a failure was actually mercy? What if that moment, that attempt, was God stopping me at the last second because he hadn't given up on me yet? I started thinking about the times I escaped accidents, the nights I cried with no one knowing, the random phrases that felt like messages meant for me, and I began to understand that maybe life had been calling me back for a long time. I just didn't want to listen. But in that hospital bed, weak, pale, stripped of dignity, I listened. And it wasn't a human voice. It was something silent, yet powerful. It was as if the Creator said, "You are wounded, but not finished. I saw you, even when you thought no one did. I saved you, even when you thought you were worthless." And that's when I began to search for something I had never truly sought. Meaning, not happiness, meaning. And without realizing it, I took the first step toward a book I had never touched, but that later on would touch me in a way no other book ever had. After the attempt came the emptiness. Not the same emptiness as before, the kind that consumes and drains everything. This was a different kind. A strange silence, almost reverent, as if my soul had been put on pause, waiting for an answer I didn't yet know I needed to give. I stared at the ceiling, the bedsheets, the cold hospital wall, and suddenly, without planning it, a question hit me like lightning. What if God still wants me? It wasn't a line from a book. It wasn't an audible voice. It was a restlessness, a spark, as if something inside me was saying, "You're still alive, not because you escaped, but because you were spared." I spent days turning that over in my mind. Why would God save someone like me, someone who gave up, who surrendered, who rejected his own existence? And more importantly, why would he allow me to feel peace after all that, even when I didn't deserve it? I started looking for answers, not in self-help books. I had already tried those. Not in medications either, because they numbed the symptoms, but never the root. For the first time, I decided to search in something I had always dismissed: faith. But to me, faith was synonymous with ignorance. I was raised in an environment where belief was seen as intellectual weakness. Religion, just a set of rules to control fragile minds. That's what I believed. Until one day, out of curiosity, I joined an online forum. Topic: depression and spirituality. And there, lost among skeptical comments and bad jokes, someone had written, "The Quran pulled me out of rock bottom. It's not religion, it's salvation." I didn't understand, but I couldn't forget that sentence. Salvation, a word I had never associated with Islam. To me, Islam was just terrorism, veils, war. That's what the media taught me. But something inside whispered, maybe you just don't know anything yet. I started researching, videos, testimonies, Quranic verses, and the more I read, the more that thought returned. What if God still wants me? Not as a robot, not as a fanatic, but as someone broken, who needs to be rebuilt. Little by little, that question became an anchor, and then a compass. It wasn't a plan, it wasn't a firm decision. It was more like a click, a curiosity. I just wanted to understand why so many people said that book was different. I Googled Quran in English, PDF translation, downloaded it. No ritual, no respect, just curiosity. I opened it, page 1, and in the very first lines, something stopped me. This is the book about which there is no doubt, a guidance for those conscious of Allah. Al-Baqarah 2:2. I doubted, of course, but I kept reading. And the more I read, the more it deconstructed me. It wasn't a dry, dogmatic text. It felt like it was speaking to me, to exactly what I was going through. It spoke about sadness, about anguish, about despair, about people who feel forgotten, wronged, abandoned, and instead of offering punishment, it offered mercy. Indeed, my punishment is severe, but my mercy encompasses all things. Al-Araf 7:156. I froze at that verse. Mercy that encompasses everything? Even suicide attempts, even despair, even me? I went back to the beginning, started over, with more attention. The surahs began to open windows inside me that I didn't even know existed, and one in particular made me cry, "Do not despair of the mercy of Allah. Indeed, Allah forgives all sins." Az-Zumar 39:53. It was exactly what I needed to hear. At that moment, the Quran was no longer just a book. It was a mirror and a hug. I realized that everything I had ever searched for, the meaning, forgiveness, comfort, direction, was there, not as an imposition, but as an invitation to breathe again, to believe that I wasn't created by accident, that the pain wasn't the end, it was only the beginning of something new, and for the first time, I felt that God wasn't angry at me. He was waiting, patiently, lovingly, with purpose. In the beginning, it felt ridiculous. Talking to a God I couldn't see, kneeling in a dark room and mumbling random words. Me, the one who used to mock religious people, was now trying to imitate what I saw in YouTube videos. I was afraid I was pretending, or worse, losing my mind. But there was something in that act, something I couldn't explain. It was as if my soul, not my mind, recognized the gesture. The first time I truly tried to pray, it was during a simple moment, nothing dramatic. Just an ordinary evening with an orange sky and a restless mind. I sat on my bed, took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and simply said, "If you see me, then please hear me." It wasn't a beautiful plea, not a memorized prayer. It was a bottled-up cry, almost childlike, but in that instant, something shifted in the air. I didn't hear a voice, I didn't see a light, but I felt a calm that wasn't mine, as if, for the first time, I had stepped out of the center and placed God there. From that point on, I started repeating it every night, even without knowing what to say. Sometimes I just cried. Other times I sat in silence. But the room became a refuge. The loneliness that once crushed me now felt full of an invisible but real presence. Little by little, I discovered I didn't need to understand everything to be heard. That God's language isn't Arabic or English. It's brokenness. It's a bare heart. I started learning words in Arabic, simple phrases, prayer movements, and each step felt like building a bridge between me and something greater than me. That's when I realized prayer isn't about repeating formulas. It's about surrendering. It's saying, I can't do this on my own. And finally, resting in that. Prayer became my safe place. My dark room turned into an improvised mosque. My pillow, a silent minbar. And my sobs, a new form of praise. If the story ended here, maybe it would sound perfect. But the truth is, after the calm came the wave. I thought that after taking my Shahada, everything would get easier, that the emptiness would vanish, that faith would instantly fill every hole. But the soul doesn't heal in a day, and the past doesn't disappear with a click. Some days I woke up in peace, made wudu, prayed, felt purpose. Other days I simply returned to the darkness. I started wondering if I was a hypocrite, if God truly accepted me, if I had done the right thing. "You're not pure enough," my mind would whisper. "You failed again. You're wasting the chance Allah gave you." And on one of those nights I fell again. Alone, weak, I gave in to temptation. Then I cried like a child. I was ashamed to pray, afraid I was a fraud. But then I remembered a verse I had highlighted in the Quran, "And do not despair of the mercy of Allah. Indeed, Allah forgives all sins." Az-Zumar 39:53. It didn't say some sins. It didn't say, as long as you never fall again. It said all. And right then, I realized one of the hardest and most freeing lessons Islam taught me. Allah is more patient with me than I am with myself. He knows the pain behind my weakness. He sees the sincerity even in silent tears. And even when I turn away from him, he remains. I returned to prayer. Ashamed, yes, but also hopeful. I stopped trying to be perfect and started trying to be consistent. And I understood that being Muslim doesn't mean being invincible. It means recognizing that even when you're wounded, you return. Even when you're dirty, you purify yourself. Even when you've fallen, you get up and look upward. For a long time, I thought dying would be a relief. Suicide didn't feel like a tragic end. It felt like freedom. But Islam taught me something no therapist, no self-help book, no friend had ever shown me. The pain doesn't end with death. It changes dimension. On the day I tried to end it all, I thought I was closing a door. But when I woke up in the hospital, I realized that Allah was showing me there were still unwritten chapters, and that the author wasn't me. It was after that moment that I began to understand the responsibility we have over our lives. Our life doesn't belong to us in a selfish sense. It's a trust from God, and He asks, "What did you do with it?" Little by little, I began to see signs. Messages in random videos, verses that spoke directly to me, people who appeared out of nowhere with the right words. And for the first time, that pain that had pushed me toward death began to turn into a compass. I didn't want to disappear anymore. I wanted to understand why, even after everything, Allah was still keeping me breathing. That's when I understood. As long as there is breath, there is a mission. As long as I'm here, there is someone who can be touched by what once destroyed me and then rebuilt me. That suicide attempt became a turning point. I wasn't just a survivor. I was a messenger, even if an imperfect one. Someone who had seen rock bottom and could now truthfully say, there is a way out. Today, when I look in the mirror, I still see scars. But they no longer scream failure. They whisper, "You came back, and you are not alone." My mission isn't to convert anyone. It's simply to prove, through my story, that Islam isn't a burden. It's a shelter. That faith isn't an escape. It's a reunion with meaning. And that suicide, no matter how seductive it seems, will never be the answer. Because Allah never abandons us, even when we try to run away from Him. Admitting I was Muslim was harder than becoming one. The Shahada, intense as it was, happened between me, Allah, and the silence of my room. But the outside world wasn't going to stay silent. When I told my mom, she thought it was just a phase. "This is just because of the depression," she said. My dad, he avoided the topic for days. He preferred pretending nothing had changed rather than accepting that everything had. My friends, some mocked me. Others just stopped replying. Some looked at me like I had lost my mind. And I get it. They didn't see what I saw. They didn't feel what I felt. But it hurt. Because after finding peace, I expected warmth. And what I found was isolation. I started to wonder, is it worth walking this path alone? Would Allah understand if I hid my faith just to keep the peace? That's when I remembered. The Prophet Muhammad was also rejected by his own tribe, and even so, he stood firm. True faith doesn't need approval. It needs courage, and little by little, Allah began placing new people in my life. A sister who taught me how to pray properly, a brother who explained the deep meaning behind Surah Al-Fatiha, even strangers online who messaged me saying, "You're not alone, we're walking with you even from afar." That's when I understood. The rejection of the world may be the price of acceptance by Allah, and that's a price I'm willing to pay. Today, I still get side eyes. I still lose invites, friendships, and even opportunities. But I gained something no one can take from me. The awareness that my soul is finally on the right path. I didn't become an angel after converting. I still have days when sadness shows up unannounced. I still slip, still fail, still cry. But now I no longer cry into the void. Today, when the tears fall, they fall in prayer. And every supplication is a bridge between pain and Allah's mercy. Even when words fail, the heart speaks, and He hears. I've learned that living doesn't mean never falling again. It means falling and knowing where to look when you're on the ground. Life after conversion didn't become magical. The world didn't get lighter, but I became stronger, not because I trust myself, but because I've learned to trust in Allah. The prayers that once felt like an obligation became a refuge. The fasting that once felt like sacrifice became purification. And the Quran, which I once read with hesitation, is now my survival guide. Today I wake up and know I'm alive because there's still something only I can do in this world. Maybe it's just to tell my story. Maybe it's just to hold the hand of someone thinking of giving up. But if Allah kept me here, it's because my mission is still alive. Now I understand what it means to live with purpose. It's not about success, fame, or applause. It's about walking, even wounded, toward the one who healed me. And if one day the darkness returns, as it has before, I know where to find the light. Not in me, but in him. If you made it this far, maybe it wasn't by chance. Maybe, like me, you've also thought about giving up. Maybe the silence has screamed so loud inside that no one else could hear, but Allah heard. And if he allowed you to hear this testimony, it's because he's still calling you back. Pain doesn't have to be your final home. Suicide doesn't end suffering. It only pushes the soul into an even darker abyss. But there is a way out. There is a hand reaching for you. And even if the world says you're worth nothing, your worth in the eyes of Allah is immense. I'm not an example. I'm a survivor, and I'm here to remind you, no one is ever too lost to be found again. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone you love. Send it to group chats, in private, wherever. You could be the instrument Allah uses to save a life, just like someone reached me without even knowing. And if there's still any doubt inside you, just close your eyes and say sincerely, "Guide me, O Allah. Show me who you are." Because when the soul cries out with truth, the answer always comes. And before you leave, subscribe to the channel. Every week, new stories like this can reach those who need them most. And maybe, one day, yours will be the one told here.